a lot today about gates, not so much the peripheral gates of Yerushalayim, but the gates that really led to the Har HaBayit. Also, with one other thing, we'll have to end a little bit early today, so it'll give people a chance to go to Mincha, but just 5 minutes. All right, so that being the case, we're going to share screen, and let's begin with something we talked about in a previous class, but I was able to get a really good image of Shar HaRachmim. As you know, as we spoke before, this gate is on the peripheral wall. Of course, the western wall that we go to daven is just on the other side of this Dome of the Rock, and which is located on Har HaBayit. But this Shar HaRachamim, which is the 1 second, let me get my annotation here. Shar HaRachamim, there we go, is located right here. As you can see, it is the only closed gate of the restored wall of Yerushalayim. Just to recap, from 1517 to 1537, Suleiman the Great, who was the second emperor of the Ottoman Empire, which conquered not only Eretz Israel, but a lot of the general Palestine, and it maintained its empire all the way through World War I when it lost it. And then it was divided, that empire was divided between France and Great Britain. And thus you have the British Mandate, the French Mandate, which perhaps we'll talk about a bit later. This part of the wall was restored by Suleiman, and it was deliberately blocked up. Here it is, it's sealed. And as I mentioned earlier, there's different reasons given. One was the Arab almost paranoia of Mashiach coming, and that's been substantiated by several different sources that I've seen. I don't know why, if you think the Mashiach is coming, that you could stop him. I can understand not seeing or believing in a Mashiach, but it's hard to believe that if Mashiach is coming, that blocking or sealing the gate, which he's supposed to enter on, would help. However, here it is, it's sealed. Inside, on the other side of this particular gate, Shar HaRachamim, which is located right above Nachal Kidron, this particular gate has within it, it's big enough to actually hold a mosque. There are a number of mosques which we don't even think about that are in Yerushalayim. One of them is right here, inside the gate. It's an enclosure inside the gate. Here you can see the cemetery that, according to at least the tradition that says that they were trying to block Mashiach, and since Eliyahu was a Kohen, he would not be able to enter because of the cemetery that's there. Well, another very plausible view as to why HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants this gate to be closed is because, as you can see, the Dome of the Rock, which is here, is built right upon the Evan HaShetiyah, which is the location of the Kodesh HaKodashim. This is the closest gate for the Shekhinah to leave when indeed it left on Tisha B'Av in the year 70. But also the Mashiach will be coming in through this gate. And one of the reasons why it's desirable for Jews, not only for the Arabs, but for Jews, a completely different reason, is because if the Shekhinah will be coming through this gate, then it shouldn't be something which is traversed on a daily basis by just anybody. And so therefore it's better that it is sealed. That is Shar HaRachamim. Now, by the way, this particular picture is very nice. I took it off the internet, but way in the background right here, you can actually see the King David Hotel. So it gives you an idea, an understanding that in general, the old city is not that big. It's less than a mile from here to the gate. And then of course, as you know, you can see the old city very well from the King David Hotel. This would be here. All of this would be the Muslim quarter. and to the left, if we were to extend the picture, that would be the Jewish quarter. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this, please? Or comments? I certainly welcome comments. Well, then let's, that being the case, let me end my share. Let's see, 1 second. Whoops. There. Let us, now I want to talk a little bit about another gate. Not a very famous gate, and it too is sealed. We have two sealed gates. One is the Shahar Rachamim. The other is a gate which is not very well known. It's, unless people have studied Yerushalayim, it's called Barclay's Gate. Barclay's Gate. Now, James Barclay was actually a Christian. As you know, Christians played an important role in uncovering archaeological finds. Here we have this particular gate is located right at the women's section. You know, the men's section of the exposed kotel is to the left as we're facing the kotel. The women's is to the right. And right here, right in the corner, this particular wall here is really what the Arabs call the Mugravi Gate. That's the only entrance from the west onto Har Bayit. We've all seen that. It looks like, you know, a large snake-like series of stairs, which of a ramp, which takes you all the way up to takes you up to Har Bayit. So that's on the other side of this wall. But here, when we're facing the wall, it took me a long time to figure out what this gate was, where it was. It too is closed. So let's take a look, first of all, at a Mishnah. One of the primary sources that we have of our Mishnayot for Har Bayit is the Mishnayot of Midot. It's not part of the Mesechtot, which are learned for Daf Yomi. But Mesechtot Midot is purely Mishnayot, and it gives us a tremendous understanding of what it was, what life was like, and what the Beit HaMikdash looked like. So here at the beginning, the opening parak, we find the following Mishnah. Parak Aleph Mishnah Gimel. Chamisha sha'arim hayu lahar bayit. There were 5 gates through which we entered and could leave Yerushalayim, the Har Bayit. Shnei sha'arei Hulda min hadarom. Now, as we will see later in the course, at the very south end of Har Bayit, there are 2 sets of gates, one a double gate, one a triple gate. They're all called Sha'arei Hulda. Just briefly, it bears the name of Hulda, who was one of the women Neviot, and she had actually placed herself, almost her business office was right at the south end of Har Bayit. And those are called Sha'arei Hulda. We'll be seeing those more in detail later. But there was a group of 2, Shnei Sha'arei Hulda min hadarom, 2 of them on the south. Mishamshin Knisa v'Yitzia. People could enter and could leave through those gates. Now, then there is another gate, which is called Tadi min hatzafon. The north end of Har Bayit could be exited from a gate called Tadi. And it's interesting that Mishnah says, Alo haya mishamesh klum. It had no particular function other than to make people aware that they were on Har Bayit. And in other words, the fact that it had no particular purpose, no particular destination out, reminded people where they are, as if I guess they needed to be reminded. The next gate is called the Shara Mizrahi, the east gate, Alav Shushana Bira Tsura. On it was that was the gate that there was a sort of an image of Shushan Habira. That's right, Shushan of Persia was located there. As a matter of fact, that actually is the very gate that we saw today, Sha'ar Rachmim. Now, that Sha'ar Rachmim that we saw earlier today is not the same. It's in the same location, but it's not the same gate. It was built. This one that we look at was built much later. But in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, there was which went in the direction of Shushan, and that's the fourth gate. The fifth gate is the one we're going to look at here. It's called Kiponos Minamarav. Kiponos was the only gate that you could enter Har Bayit from the west. Okay? Now, we're going when you get there to the Kotel, the women in particular will be able to take note. At the very right-hand side, as this leads into this, this Mugravi Gate, which goes up to Har Bayit. Notice again, there is a mosque right in this door. There's a mosque right there. So we don't go into that. It's not that most poskim say, I think all poskim say, that you're allowed to go into a mosque, but there's no need for us to do that. But let's take a look at this little corner here, this little juncture of what we now have come to the conclusion is Kiponos Gate, Shar Kiponos. On the top of each gate, there was a lintel, which was 10 amos wide. That's what the Mishnah in Tummy tells us. Well, we can't really see all of the lintel here because part of it extends on the other side of that wall. But Barclay, the man who actually identified this, recognized it as a gate because this is a lintel, and here, underneath here, are the stones that sealed the lintel. So you really don't even see a gate per se, but it was there. And the accepted theory now is that this was one of 5 gates, the actual gate that led into Har Bayit. And it's the only one on the west to enter. It just says even now there's only one gate that you can really enter on the west, and that's called by the Arabs Mugravi, the Mugravi Gate. Now, you should know also that Mugrabi is like Maghreb, or what we would call Ma'ariv. It's very, the ayin sound as like a G, it can come out like a G, so Mugrabi, that's the name of this gate up here, which is open and active now. This gate down here is called Barclay's Gate. A lot of people overlook it, they don't see it, but it's there. All right, now, let's take a look at yet another screen. And this is going to be right here, where we find ourselves virtually whenever we go to Yerushalayim, certainly when we go to the Kotel. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Kotel today. I think it's actually, from here, we're going to get a little bit of a background of the historical changes that took place to the Kotel. First of all, this is, of course, on the men's side. Here, if you enter here, you can enter like a room, which women, I believe, there is a women's section there now. There wasn't always one, but there are several places for minyanim, several aronot kodesh, which are in there. But we're going to focus on what's outside. Notice we have this dark black line, which indicates all that was left of the Kotel after Tisha B'Av, after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Now, in other words, let's say in the year 70 CE, all that destruction took place, and there are now 7 layers of stones, shichvot, that go from this place above, right there. That's where it ends. That's what was left of the Herodian Kotel HaMa'aravi. Underneath it, I'm sure some of you have seen, maybe all of you have seen, that there's like a view that you can take that will take you another 15 or 20 feet below. Well, that's true, because we're not standing on the ground that Yerushalayim was at the time of the destruction of Beit HaMikdash. So we're talking about a wall which was still pretty much intact, but nevertheless, that's as high as it got. Now, also, in other words, after the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, it was, and it remained that way until the beginning of the Umayyad dynasty, the Arab Umayyad dynasty. The Arabs conquered, let's put it this way, let's go back for a second to give a little bit of background. Muhammad founded the religion. Their chief sacred work is called the Quran, which has to do with reading, like our Koreh. But also, the year number one in the Muslim calendar is 622. That's the year. That's their year one or year zero. Now, Yerushalayim was conquered by the Muslims from the Christians. We'll learn about that a little bit later, because that's a couple of centuries ahead. It was conquered in the year 638. So from 622 to 638, you're talking about 16 years. Within 16 years, Islam moved from the Arabian Peninsula, what we now call Saudi Arabia, Mecca and Medina, and they moved north, and then with extraordinary speed, Islam conquered both east and west within 100 years, so that by the year 732, when the onslaught of the Muslims was completed, Islam governed all the way to the west, Spain to the west, the Iberian Peninsula to the west, and then, of course, that's in Europe. They were stopped by most of us who were in school, when we learned some ancient history, the Muslims were stopped in 732 CE by Charles Martel, Battle of Tours. It meant absolutely nothing to me then, but it sure does mean something to me now, because, of course, had Islam gone all the way north into Europe, our world would have been much, much different. So, and also the Jewish life would have been much, much different. In some ways for the better, in some ways for the worse, but it certainly would have been different. And then they conquered all of North Africa, and that would include Morocco, or what the Arabs call Maghreb. Maghreb means like Ma'arif, the western part, all the way to the furthest west that you could go, and Algeria, and then Libya, and Egypt, etc. In Africa, all of North Africa, and they extended very, very far into Persia, and into what even now, of course, it's in Iran. Iran is a Muslim country. So this was a huge, huge empire. Part of it was in Yerushalayim. We'll talk about when we get to the Muslim conquest. We'll see why the Muslims are so adamant about not giving 1 inch of Yerushalayim in what they consider to be theirs, and why they do. Okay, so, but in the meantime, when they came, this is what they found. They found the Kotel, which is only this high. Of course, it was a bit lower, and what was above it was nothing but rubble, which was down on the ground itself. Now, the Umayyad dynasty of the 700s restored the next 4 layers of the wall. They did it mostly with the Herodian stones. They didn't make their own stones. A lot of the we call them ashlars. A lot of the ashlars were just laying at the foot of the Kotel from the destruction of Roman destruction, but they used mostly these stones. So, and they built then the next 4 layers. So we have 7 and 4, and then there are these bricks up here are roughly from the Turkish rule, and then the last 3 or 4 rows are from the late part of the 19th century. So actually, the Kotel looked very, very different to the Ramban, and to anybody who came there over the course of time. And when the Chazal tell us the famous phrase, Eina Shechina Zaza Mikotel HaMa'aravi Shel Beit HaMikdash, that the Shechina does not depart from the Kotel HaMa'aravi, it doesn't mean that it was left completely intact. Obviously it wasn't, but it means that ultimately, number one, it remained. And number two, that the Shechina that never departed. The Shechina never departed from the Kotel. Questions, anybody, or comments, please? Going once. All right. So let's see. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back. Oops, that's right. We're going to go back and take one more look at one more image at least today. And that is actually, we're going to look at two images. Now what we're going to do this week and for most of next week, we're going to focus on the Roman conquest and what Yerushalayim looked like in the time of the Roman conquest. Now, what we need to understand is that the Romans came, they were very happy to take over, but they sadly and ironically were invited in. Jews invited the Romans in to settle their own disputes. Of course, this becomes a very, very important lesson for all of us. Becomes a very important lesson for all of us to realize that that we need to settle our own differences, and it will not work for us to invite others to solve our problems. Certainly that's not the case. So what we're going to do, Rome enters in the year 63 BCE. Pompey, at that time, was the general in charge of the conquest of the East, meaning to say east of Rome, not west. And in fact, he came and was actually welcomed by some, invited by some, but little were they to know that he would come and literally swallow up any hope of Jewish sovereignty. So we're going to take a look now at what Yerushalayim looked like, at least the Har Bayit looked like, in the time of the Romans. Now, I'm having a little bit of difficulty in accessing my PowerPoint, so I'm taking, these are not random pictures, but these are separate pictures, and hopefully we'll be able to have, I have other pictures that depict things a little better for us, but this should help us. This is what the Har Bayit looked like at the time of Herod. Now, first of all, we heard an absolutely stunning tour and saw an absolutely stunning tour by Eve Harrow on Thursday on Tisha B'Av. I hope you had I hope you had a chance to see it, and I hope you're not comparing her massive knowledge and ability as a tour guide to mine, but nevertheless, she is outstanding. She told us about Herod. Herod was you can't really diagnose anybody without seeing them and without being licensed. And no, but he certainly did exhibit what we would call today probably bipolar problems. He was, they used to call it manic depressive. He was a person who was of extraordinary mood swings. When he was good, he was very, very good. When he was evil, he was absolutely abhorrent. When he was very good, and he was working on to the benefit of the Jewish people, because Herod was put in place by the Romans. All right, he is as Eve Harrow said, his Jewish credentials were very, very weak. He was the descendant of forced conversions. That was the problem. He was a descendant of forced conversions, and the Idumeans were forced by the Hashmonaim to convert to Judaism, and of course that in itself brings his pedigree into certainly great question. But he considered himself a Jew, And in many ways, he identified himself with the Jewish people. When there was a famine, terrible famine in the land, he petitioned Rome to get as much money as he could and as much grain as he could for Israel. In that sense, he was very good. Of course, he considered the Beit HaMikdash to be the centerpiece of not only Jewish life, but he considered it to be one of the wonders of the world. And of course, it was a stepping stone for him to say, "This is my Jerusalem." Now he killed his brother-in-law. He killed his mother-in-law. He even killed two children of his. He killed his wife, all out of paranoia. And he killed hundreds of Talmidei Chacham, hundreds of them he killed. So he was a person of, all in all, we'd have to say that he was pretty villainous. But one of the things he's known for is being the great builder. We saw Herodion on that beautiful tour on Thursday, those who were able to see it. That came largely from his creative mind, and of course, his ability to be able to engage people in forced labor. We're looking here at Har HaBayit as it looked at the end of Herod's reign and even up until the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Let's identify certain places here. First place I'd like to identify is Barclay's Gate. It wasn't called Barclay's Gate then. It was called Kiponos. So, and here it is. It has a number 4 over it. So when the Mishnah says, well, there were 4 gates. Here are the Hula Gates, 2 of them. This is, let me see if I can get my, 1 second, get my, if I like to get our marker, if it's possible. Maybe not. Maybe not. But the thing is that, oh wait, no. He doubled the size of Har HaBayit. That's first of all. He doubled the size of Har HaBayit. And he did it by trucking in earth. And by trucking in a tremendous amount of earth, nothing was beyond his scope. If he wanted it, he made sure that he got it. He had pretty much complete power. He lived under the thumb of the Romans, but he did everything that he possibly could to find favor with them, and thus he got an awful lot. So he doubled the size of Har HaBayit from the time that it was in the time of Shlomo and even in the second Beis HaMikdash, and he trucked earth in. Now, if you truck a tremendous amount of earth into a location, so then you're going to need to create a retaining wall that will hold everything in place. Just very much like as orthodontists do, if they move the teeth, they put a retainer in to keep the teeth in place till they finally set and settle. Well, that was the same thing with Har HaBayit. So when we're standing on, some people certainly go on Har HaBayit. We have poskim who say that you may definitely do so. All poskim reject the idea of walking anywhere which would lead you to the Kodesh HaKodashim, and even the Mikdash. The question is karet. But nevertheless, there are poskim who say that you can walk around the periphery of Har HaBayit. But when you're walking on the periphery of Har HaBayit, you're not at the actual stones of Har HaBayit, because all of that is earth that was placed above the bedrock of Har HaBayit, or Har HaMoriah. So first of all, then, let's see if we can start identifying things. This is Barclay's Gate, which would mean this is the south end of the women's section of the exposed kotel. Okay? Now, this would be the men's side of it. As we're going to see, there was, and Josephus says that there was a bridge that connected what we call the upper city, which is much higher, to Har HaBayit. Rich people don't like to go into the valley and then go up. So they had a bridge which was built, and we really didn't know where it was for a long period of time. We knew that it existed because we have no reason not to believe Josephus. He wasn't talking about religion. He wasn't talking about politics. He was talking about what Yerushalayim looked like in this case. We have every reason to believe that it's true, no reason to lie. So this led right into the Har HaBayit. Today it's called, this part of it is called Wilson's Arch, right here. And then this really, if you would walk on this road, that would be called the tunnel tour, literally there. This, of course, is when we're talking about the bedrock down here of Har HaBayit and near Har HaBayit. Now, if you look back here, this is another example of Herod's partially paranoia, but also some pretty sound thinking. Herod, looking into the future, had a good reason to believe that the love affair between, shall we say, Rome and Herod would last, and it probably would not last after, beyond Herod's lifetime. So he built here a fortress called Antonia. We have almost no remnant of that fortress. We know about it from Josephus. And in it, this fortress, which was like a citadel, very much like the citadel we talked about earlier, housed troops and housed armaments and weaponry. It was very large, and it's named Antonio because when Herod saw that Antonio had defeated Julius Caesar, and Herod had made the mistake of backing Caesar, he quickly built this edifice in order to curry favor with the new new emperor. So that's why it's called Antonia. We have no remnants of it now. So this is the Western Wall, and now we're going to take a look at this. This is called the Stoa. It doesn't exist at all now, of course. Most of this whole wall really was taken down. As a matter of fact, this is probably the part that was destroyed. This part probably stayed up for a good part, for centuries. But this is called the Stoa. The Stoa are, I believe, the first skyboxes in history. Herod wanted Jerusalem to be the showpiece of the western part of the Roman Empire. To do that, he wanted to invite as many leaders from as many countries as he could to show them the magnificence of Yerushalayim. And in fact, it was. Chazal tell us that that there were 10 measures of beauty in the world, and 9 of them were given to Yerushalayim. It was indeed beautiful. It is indeed beautiful. Now, these Stoa, since non-Jewish people were not allowed on Har HaBayit itself, they were escorted up and into these skyboxes where they could watch all the proceedings that took place on Har HaBayit and in the Beit HaMikdash. Also, the theory is, which I pretty much not disputed, even though I don't know that there's proof, is this in the latter part of the time, the Sanhedrin was housed here. Although we know that it was housed in other places earlier, but it was moved to here. All right, questions, anybody, please? Or
hi, Rabbi.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not really a question, just that this is bringing back good memories from the TI days.
Yes, Dean. Yeah. Okay. Oh, good. Thank you. That's good. You're coming back for a twofer. Very nice. All right. Very good. And I want to do one more thing here for us, at least one more. Whoops. I'm sorry. There we go. Let's get back here and take a quick look. Also, this is Har Zaitim, as you can see here. It's Mount Olive. That's Mount Olive. And this would then be Mount Scopus, Har Tzofim, Mount Scopus. This is the Ophel. If you recall, we haven't met in 2 weeks. So this was the extension that David HaMelech made to the original Ir David. the Gemara relates that hundreds of people would go up these stairs. These are called the Hula Gates. These are the Hula Gates. People would enter from the south. That's what people would do in the Beit HaMikdash. People would enter from the south generally, and then they would make a right-hand turn and walk. They would walk counterclockwise. But if someone was an Avel, either they were mourning or they had been excommunicated, they would enter. It appears now from here, or Kiponis, and they would walk clockwise. And there you have two groups of people. I hope that there's always going to be, unfortunately, mourners, but hopefully not too many people that faced cherem or excommunication. They would meet going in different directions. And the people who were going counterclockwise, which would be most people, would see them. And the Mishnah tells us that they would give a bracha. If the person was an Avel, that they would give them the bracha that they should get a comfort from Zion. And if they were excommunicated and they were ostracized from the community, there are two different views about what they said, but each of them was intended to ease their pain and to ease them back into Jewish life. Okay. All right, let's take about 3 more minutes and go. Second.
Rabbi, can I ask for clarification?
Please. Yeah, please ask.
So if they were excommunicated, then they were being brought back in? And
well, they were still allowed, if they were excommunicated, they were still permitted to, go to Har Bayit. They weren't tameh. And even the people who were mourners were not tameh either. It's just that those who were excommunicated, probably as a form of tshuva, I would assume, as a form of tshuva, they would try to come and bring korbanot. Again, there's no korban prescribed per se, but that's what they would do. So I think, we're 10-2, I think, Richard, right?
Yes.
So what we'll do today is we'll stop right here. What I'd like to do then is to remind you, I think we'll start next week at 8:15, just for 1 week. After that, we'll be able to meet at 8 o'clock with hopefully no difficulty. All right? I thank you very much, everybody.